Good morning. It is Wednesday morning, the day before Thanksgiving. This will probably actually go out this afternoon. So if you're listening to it as a podcast, you'll probably be able to have it by this afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, and listen to it when on your walk tomorrow morning. We are the podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. I'm Ann Brennan of ASMM Digital, and we're Small Business Connections. Our idea is to give you something you can walk away with and put to work immediately in your business. That's my goal for you today. And that's why I bring on the guests that I bring. Actually, our guest today is coming to us from Switzerland, which is, I think, the first time we've had a guest from Switzerland. We've had South Africa, we've had Germany, we've had England, we've had Denmark, first one from Switzerland. So that's kind of exciting. I want to let you know that we are streaming live. I tell you this because we have specialists. We have people here who have information that they can give you. So if you have a question, you can ask it live. You can leave a comment and we can answer it as we go. So please do feel free to do that. I also want to give you our sponsor for the week. Our sponsor for the week is burgersandbands.org. Burgers and Bands for Suicide Prevention is a charity that I started with my son, Ethan. And what we do, we raise awareness to help people see that they're not alone in their struggle with mental health. Yesterday, Biden came out and said that he thinks that this is not just a health crisis, but a mental health crisis, the pandemic and all of the social distancing we're doing. It is a mental health crisis. We are seeing that so much. We've said suicide is up 33% just in the United States. It is really, really difficult for people right now because they're alone. So help us to spread the word that you are not alone. Help us to create mental health initiatives that we're putting into the schools and putting into the community to help other people understand that they are not alone in their battle. So it's burgersandbands.org. You can go donate. This weekend, we're having a live virtual event. It will be on Facebook and YouTube. You can watch it. We have 17 bands who donated their time and their talent to play and to stream this music. So please do tune in on Facebook and YouTube for that. We are looking forward to it. So it'll be Saturday and Sunday. All right, let me introduce you to our guest. We have Geordie Wardman from Onestop DevShop today. Hi, Geordie. How are you?
Hi, Ann. How are you? Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. And I dropped something on you right before we went live. I said, oh, I really didn't think you were from Switzerland. I thought you were from the Midwest.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment.
It is a compliment. We think that the people from the Midwest in the United States are some of the best people in the world, just the kindest hearts and hardest working people that I've ever met. So we love them. So Geordie, tell us a little bit about what you do.
So I'm a software entrepreneur, and I have my own software agency. So I'm not a developer, although I'm somewhat technical. I'm mostly sales and marketing. And so I've built the agency, and I've put together a team, and they're mostly based out of India. And so when I was setting it up a few years ago, I actually flew out to India and I met them, and so we all hung out for a week and got to know each other, and so that's how I put together the team. And I'm building software for basically small business owners.
It occurred to me when we were talking before the show that you're sort of like a magician. You're sort of like a wizard from Harry Potter, right? You can see that there are things available to us that maybe everybody else can't see because you've created things. You're creating something out of nothing.
That's
And
right.
helping an entrepreneur with a need that maybe they don't even really realize what that need is until they talk to a software developer or talk to somebody who can help them come up with a solution that they didn't know was even there. So
I think that's fair to say. I mean, it depends on how technical the entrepreneur is. If they're exposed to software, a lot of people maybe are used to using software as a service. But sometimes when I say that term, there's like, well, what does that mean? It's like, well, it's just any software that you pay like a monthly recurring subscription fee to. So like, let's say, Google Suites would be an example. Adobe, if you're paying $9 a month for Photoshop, those are software as a service. And, so some of the products I build range from sort of the $10 a month range all the way up to, like $2,000 a month. So you can imagine how quickly revenues can grow if you have a client that's willing to pay you $2,000 a month for a specific pain that they're trying to solve.
Right. Well, and software for us and as an agency is our single biggest
Right,
expense.
exactly.
It
Like
really is.
MailChimp and all of those, your mail, your whatever it is, Infusionsoft and all these autoresponders.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it also is such a good solution, for people. If within your office alone, I talk to, we work with a PT company, and they have to go through 3 different systems. And anytime a new patient comes in, they're putting things into 3 different systems. And there's a software solution for that. We were able to connect them to somebody who said, no, there's a software solution. Put it in one time and it will distribute it to these 3 things. So there are times when you don't even know that your process needs new software.
That's right. That's right.
So, yeah. Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about how you go from being a fireman to being an entrepreneur. And for you, really a serial entrepreneur. Can you expand a little bit about how you did that and why you kept going?
Yeah, so I started off school as a forestry major. I went to school in University of Maine and graduated and went right out into basically working in the field in the mountains. I lived in Montana for a number of years and was a forest firefighter. So I did that quite a while. It was about 7 or 8 years, and at the time, I actually met my wife doing that. And as we got married, and it was sort of clear to me that I saw what my colleagues were doing, which is basically like going off and fighting 4 months out, in California or something like that. They weren't all doing that, but if you're on a fire, say in California, and you're down there for a month, and the fire season could go 2 or 3 more months longer. Like in August, some of these crews are probably still out there now fighting forest fires. So if you went back, it was much harder to get back into the system, and you're only making money when you're on the fire. So I saw that and was like, well, if I want to spend any time with my wife, I better switch into something that I could be home, I could raise a family. So that's when I switched into computers. I didn't know that much at the time, but I saw that there's, you could do it from anywhere. I could move, I could live anywhere in the world. And that's essentially when I made that shift. And so I did actually have to go into the corporate world to do that. I couldn't go right into being an entrepreneur. So I went into the corporate world. I took some Oracle certifications to have something that, I could get hired for. And from there, I discovered my first sort of entrepreneurial problems, and launched into my career from the corporate world, which was always scary when you're doing that.
Oh, it is very scary when you take that first step, but it's, to me, and actually, I'd be interested to hear your opinion on this. I'll hear a lot of people say, well, I'm going to dip my toes into it. And I always think when you do that, you're not giving it your all. And so it's not as successful. Do you think people should dip their toes in or jump both feet into an entrepreneurship?
Well, that's a great question. I think that it really depends on your situation. I think for someone like myself, who I was married at the time, and I had had obviously more. I think I even had a mortgage, a decent sized mortgage. So what I did was I kept the full-time job and started something on the side, because I had to have that steady paycheck. But as soon as I could, and it took me like 2 years. Fortunately, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have to. I didn't have to do that much during my day job to keep the side thing going. But I was like taking vacations and going to trade shows. So I was working a lot. It was definitely 2-3 years where I was busy. But for me, I knew that on the other side, it would be worthwhile, because I could, really write my own lifestyle design. I could design my life the way I wanted to. And so, of course, it was totally worth it. I've been doing it now for at least 12 years on my own, working from home. I could go to an office if I wanted to. I choose not to.
Right.
But yeah, it was totally worth it. So I think to answer your question, if you can start with a side hustle, it's safer. And
Right.
so I think you start with a side hustle, see if it works. But as soon as it does start to work, I think then you can go full in, because that's the only way to make it work.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a good point, because it's something that I will have, and it happens a lot. And it's probably a sexist thing for me to say. I'm just going to say it anyway, because I just say things anyway. Um, I was lucky. My husband has a good job, and he has, he earns the most of our money, right?
Hmm.
So when I started this, there wasn't a risk. There wasn't that risk. So men will say to me often, "Oh, I want to do what you do," and I say, "Oh, geez, it's like
Yeah.
maybe you should start slower," because I just was able to jump into it. But it, it
Right.
is it is risky. It is something that's scary, and I can't imagine having done it knowing that I was the sole money, the
Breadwinner.
sole
Yeah.
source of money for our home.
Right.
So one of the things we want to talk about today is e-commerce, and the fact that we're coming up right now in the States. A lot of people are going back to stage one of the quarantine,
Lockdown.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there are a lot of businesses who are still going, okay, so what do I do? So what are some of the solutions you think for as far as e-commerce goes for businesses?
Well, I think for e-commerce, it's depending on what your product is and how. But if you're, say, a brick and mortar, it totally makes sense to go to e-commerce, because you're obviously not getting that foot traffic now, and you're not getting any type of revenues from that. Who knows how long that this lockdown could be? Hopefully, it's short. But as we all know, we don't really know how this is going to end. So getting revenues online is a really affordable way. I think you could set up an e-commerce shop for $4,000 or $5,000, which may sound like a lot of money. Maybe it depends, but there is inventory involved. So so setting up an e-commerce shop it's, I think, a relatively small investment when it comes to starting a business. I think if you can start a business for 5,000, I think that's pretty cheap. And I think for e-commerce, you should be able to do that. But getting set up virtually is just as important. So if you're a consultant, or if you're, let's say you're a yoga studio or something, getting set up and streaming and getting a digital presence, starting to build some a digital audience, is absolutely necessary. And the longer you fight, the further behind the crowd you're going to be.
Absolutely. Well, and you just said something that I don't know why I've never thought of it before, but creating a digital audience, it's the new foot traffic, right?
That's right.
It used to be if you had a yoga shop or you had a yogurt shop, if you had a clothing shop, you wanted the foot traffic. You wanted to be where people could see you. Well, now you can do that online, but you have to make it consistent. You have to be there every day. Just like you wouldn't put your shop there one day and put it somewhere else the next. You want yourself to be out there. You want to be out there every day and create that foot traffic. So,
That's right.
and then one of the other things is to consider that I think, and you've probably got great solutions for this. Are you making it easy for your customers? Are you making it easy for them to buy? Can they schedule with you online? Can they, buy with you with one click? Are you reminding them? I think you said something earlier. You're doing Shopify apps, and you said something about that cart that was left sitting there, right?
That's right. Yeah. So the easiest place to think about when you're building your business out is, what is a way that I can make it easier for my customer, as you said, to get in touch with me. And a lot of times that's not building, like, you don't need to come to a software developer for that. There's plenty of software that's already doing that. But if you found a particular problem from your customers, just say if you were like a flower shop or whatever, you were trying to sell in your local area for uh, online sales. What you can do, or what we've done for some of our customers, is we've built ways to get to further increase the sale. So a common thing is what's called an upsell. So let's say you're coming in and buying some flowers, and on the checkout screen, we've all seen this. It's like, how about adding some chocolates to your order or whatever it is?
Right.
Or getting say a recurring subscription. You want to send flowers to your mother or mother-in-law on a monthly basis because you're not able to see her and she's alone or whatever. You could set up a subscription, and that's the sort of thing that we help our clients build. But that's an idea that you could use, and I'm just using that as one example. But there's all kinds of things that you can do to increase that ticket sale in your online experience.
Right. Well, and I love the idea that you need to kind of think outside the box there too, because it's funny. I would have never thought I would get a subscription to tennis balls. But I have a subscription for tennis balls, not the ones that I go and hit at the tennis court, right?
Oh, for your
But the ones
dog.
I throw for my dog.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
I'm constantly buying them. And I had bought them enough that the store that I was buying them from said, "Do you want to just get a subscription to this?" And I
Yeah.
was like, "Well, yeah, that makes sense."
Especially if
Right?
they see that you've bought 3 times, it's like, hey, this person's obviously a big user of these tennis balls. And I can relate because I have a black lab, and my
There you
black
go.
lab is always, wanting to chase the ball, and then they get so dirty and
And he tears his apart.
yeah,
He likes
yeah.
to chew them. He's a Great Dane, so
Uh-huh.
he's pretty big.
Yeah.
So yeah, but setting that in place so that you say after the third time or after the second time or however many times, ask that question.
That's right. Yeah.
Because you're not always there to see those orders, and you might not make that connection, but the computer will,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah. Or I would
So
even ask it the first time, I mean, why not? You may only get 10%, but hey, that's 10%, and 10% of your customers where you're making a bigger sale, and nobody gets annoyed by it. You can just say, you skip and say, no, thanks, just check out. But you
right.
will get 10 to 15% that will actually make that additional sale.
Absolutely. I was just thinking this morning. I work with a company called Park Home, and they do. As a matter of fact, I haven't even called her, so if she's watching this, and she may be, she can take my idea and run with it. But she makes these cute little trays, and they are designed for Easter maybe, and for decorating your house. You make the tray, you put it on your coffee table, it looks beautiful. But she could create a subscription to that to change that particular tray out by the season, right?
Yeah,
So it's the
that's
kind
right.
of thing you need to start thinking outside that box, which actually brings me to our next subject, which is pivoting online, and not thinking, oh, I'm just solving my problem that I currently have, but creating something that you can take after the pandemic, right? When the pandemic ends, if you created these pivots, maybe you can take it into the next level. So then you've got your people who are already coming in and the thing you added during the pandemic, right?
That's right. So no doubt, after all of this ends, our workplace is going to be greatly changed by this, because now people are going to be so used to working at home or online. So you better have your online presence set up so that you're ready for that, because everyone is going to have that. It's going to so the sooner you start, the stronger off you'll be. And Seth Godin, who's a personal sort of mentor at a distance of mine, describes, all you need is 1,000 real fans, to build a tribe, and that's not a lot to ask from. But these are people that will consistently buy from you, and you come up with a new offer, and so you can always take those 1,000 customers and that doesn't take that long, as long as you're treating them really right, they'll be loyal. And it's a much less daunting thing to think about. It says, okay, well, oh, well, everyone else is ahead of me, or that I don't have 30,000 visits on my website a month. But you don't need that. You can create a really good business, just with 1,000 true fans.
Exactly. Well, and people I'm sure are tired of hearing me say this. The best time to plant a tree was 50 years ago,
That's right.
or the second best time is today,
That's
right?
right. That's
So we
right.
can keep putting it off, but we're not growing that tree until we plant it. So go ahead and start it now.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. So one of the hardest things of being an entrepreneur is trying to figure out how to manage your time. Sometimes you feel, I know I will feel like I am just absolutely nuts, or people will say to me, Ann, you run a business, you run a podcast, you run a charity. How do you find time to rest? I'm like, how do you find
And
time to
you're a
live?
mother. Don't forget
And I'm
that.
a mom.
Yeah.
Exactly. But guess what? I do. So I would love to hear some of your tips, and I'll give you, I'll chime in here as well.
Yeah, so time management is something that I've really become interested in the last year. It was a friend of mine that is someone that I mastermind with. Was anyone that is not familiar with that term? It's basically a group of entrepreneurs that sort of talk about their businesses, and you help strategize with them and stuff. He was telling me about, oh, I heard this podcast about this coach. He's like a coach, and about tracking your time. And so I said, well, okay, that makes sense. Time is entrepreneur's most valuable resource. I mean, Bill Gates will say that, time to him is more valuable than money.
Right.
Because everyone's got a finite amount of time, obviously. And so it makes sense to track it. We track our money in QuickBooks and Xero. Why not track our time? So we started off with a spreadsheet, and the idea is to sort of see, like, if you track, like, say 2 weeks of your time, and you actually see, like, what are you actually doing with your time. And so once you do that, it's very enlightening to see, like, okay, here's the end of my day. What did I actually get accomplished? And I look down through usually there's like 10 different things. It's like check emails. So, okay, we all have to do that. But did I really need to be doing that for 2 hours today? Probably not. And
Right.
then the other big ones are, if I'm reading news, I will actually track that, so, in 10 minutes, like sometimes, like, I'll be waiting for a call, and I have 10 minutes. It's like, oh, I'll just check the news. But, after a month, I see that I'm spending, like, 12 hours reading the news or something. That's a problem. And
Right.
so that was a big thing it really makes you look and analyze your day. And what it also does is what I do with the spreadsheet, and I've actually built it into an app now, is that I analyze each task. I put it a dollar amount to that. So let's say you pay yourself 10,000 a month or whatever it is, and so if you did that, I'm going to guess you're paying yourself around 50 an hour. So if you split out your day, that's on an 8-hour day. Let's say you're working 6 hours, so it's a $300 day or something.
Mm-hmm.
If you see that you're spending, an hour messing around with like a social media graphic or something, it's like, oh, this is clearly not something that I should be doing, because I'm paying myself 50, or if I'm a coach, maybe I charge 200 an hour. I should be getting somebody else to do that. You can
Right.
find someone to do social media or write a blog or what are all these things that we do as business owners. And so that was one of the biggest eye openers for me, that's made me streamline. And now I can run a report. At the end of the month, it's like, what are the tasks that I should be delegating, so I can actually see what they are. And now I can go out and find like an agency or a freelancer that can go and say, I can offload these things. So
Right.
my new rule now is no CEO should be working on on the same thing twice. So that's my goal. Like, I want to automate it, I want to delegate it, or I just don't want to do it. So that's
Right.
really made my experience as an entrepreneur become so much more efficient.
That's great. I like that. And I'm trying to, I'm flabbergasted because I'm trying to think, what things do I do over and over and over again that I can't rid of? So now I've got to go work on that. So I love that you're talking about tracking it, because I have my oldest son, he's 26 now.
Uh-huh.
When he was 17 years old, he said, I am just so busy. I don't have time to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said to him, how much time do you spend on your computer? He says, maybe an hour a day. And I was on YouTube, maybe
Hmm.
an hour a day. I said, why don't we look at your history? And he's like, fine. Yeah, I'm going to show you, right? And we
Yeah.
put it up, and it was 5 or 6 hours a day, every single day. And it was shocking to him that he
Yeah.
spent that much time. And I think that's what we would find. Most of us will find that if we track our time, that we're doing something that we don't realize we're doing, and we're spending that time on something that we're like, that's not worth my time. Why am I doing that?
That's right. Well, social media obviously is a big problem for most of us. I actually decided to delete all of the social media apps off of my phone. Not
Hmm.
to say that I don't do it, because I still go on my desktop, but since I'm tracking my time, I deleted it off the phone. At least now I'm doing it 10 minutes a day, and it's enough. If somebody chats to me, I don't want to like just disappear. So I can chat back to them, but that's essentially has saved up so much of my time. So if time is a
Exactly.
struggle for you, I that's one of the first things that I recommend as an entrepreneur is just get a spreadsheet and start tracking your time and see where you're actually spending it, and put an actual value on that hour. If you were messing around writing a blog post, and you're a coach and you charge 200 an hour, maybe you should be finding a good writer and pay him $40 to do that blog post, and you should
Right.
be out trying to get more clients. Um,
Absolutely.
so that's the sort of things that that's just sort of a passion project for me. I turned it into an app, and it's helping me.
Yeah. So is that app available for people?
It is, yeah. I just came out. It just came out basically a month ago, and we actually aimed it at coaches, because I figured coaches would be people that track their time, and maybe
Right.
even tell their students to do it. Yeah. So
So what's the name of it? Because we'll put it in our show
okay,
notes.
yeah, it's at tiktoklab.com, and we're actually putting a Black Friday and Cyber Monday deal on, so you can get lifetime access. And if you say that you saw me on this show, I'll maybe even give you an extra deal. So but it's going to be anywhere between $50 and $100 for lifetime access
That
to
is
this app.
great.
Yeah, so
That's
yeah, I think it would be really yeah.
So anybody who's watched the show knows that I watch a lot of Michael Hyatt. I listen to a lot of Michael Hyatt. So I was walking the other day, listening to Michael Hyatt, and he said something that I thought was it's so true, but I hadn't thought of it. He talked about being in college and saying to his mom, I'm never going to be busier than I am right now. I am so busy, I don't even know what to do with my life.
Hmm.
And that is us, I think, throughout life, and it keeps happening. I look back at when I first started this business, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy, I don't even know what to do with myself. And then I started the charity, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and it
Hmm.
tends to get busier if you're not paying attention to it,
That's
if
right,
you're
and
not
it can
looking at
run
what you're doing.
away. Yeah, you can run away. Absolutely.
So, all right. So you talked about reading the news. We always ask our guests what your favorite book is. Talked about Seth Godin. I love Seth. So actually, I'm sitting over here looking at some of the books on my shelf, and at least three of them over there are from Seth. So what are your favorite books?
Well, I would say one of my favorite books is The One Thing, and I unfortunately I don't remember the author's name, but it's a pretty I think pretty popular one. The One Thing, though, and the do you know that book?
I don't. I know the one word, but I don't know the one
Okay,
thing.
the one thing is essentially it's the question is, what is the one thing that I could be working on that makes all other things basically like not necessary to do. So and you can break that down into 6 months, and into like a month, a week, and an hour. So let's say, for example, you decided that what's the one thing that I could do to make all other things in my business become unnecessary. And let's say, for example, is writing a book. And if I wrote a book, that would just make my business explode. So you could take that, okay, I've decided it's going to be a book. And then from there, it's like, okay, well, what can I do right now to get that going? And say, okay, I need to find an editor. So that's almost how you break everything down. And then once you found the editor, it's like, okay, then I need to, I need to build an outline, and then I need to write the page. So that's essentially how you do it. So the one thing is hands down my favorite business book. The other one is The Compound Effect. That's a great one as well. And it's just sort of along the same lines, but it's thinking, just the small things that we do every day to grow our business compounds over time, which obviously makes sense, but a lot of times we don't think of it.
We forget about it.
Yeah, that's right. We don't think of it that way.
Yeah. It's actually, so I used to train for long distance races, and I wrote an article called It Happens Slowly and Then All at Once. And that's exactly what the compound effect is. You're doing things, you're doing it every single day, and suddenly you're like, oh, it's done. But it feels like it's taking forever. And then suddenly you look up and you're like, oh, it's done. I'm here.
You're at the finish line. That's right. I just ran an ultra marathon myself this summer, and took me 10 hours. And as you say, you're doing it, and, it sure didn't feel like it at the time, but, there you go. It's one step at a time, and you complete that in 10 hours. And yeah, it was a big, long day, but it's a great accomplishment.
Exactly. So you totally get it. It is that compound. You're not going to do it. I mean, there are people who go and do 50 miles or however long, and they do it without any training. But you didn't get there without any training. You got there by these small steps to build yourself up to be able to go into it, and then the small steps all day long, right?
That's right.
So, yeah.
Right.
So, well, all right. How do people get in touch with you?
Well, it's you can reach out to me at onestopdevshop.io. And Twitter is actually a pretty good place because no one contacts me there. So, but either place is good. If you're interested in time management, you can check out TikTok. It's not like the app. It's TICKTOCKLAB. And that is, we're having a deal. So reach out to me on Twitter or through my website, and I'll make sure you get that deal because it's not on the website.
Okay, thank you for that. So on Twitter, did they find you at Geordie Wardman or at Onestop
Geordie
DevShop?
Wardman. Yeah, Geordie Wardman.
Are we connected on Twitter?
I don't know. We should be.
We should be. I will go and look. I spend a lot of time on Twitter. You said
that sounds
time
like
management. I'm like,
yeah, it sounds like a time suck. You gotta limit yourself. At least track it.
Exactly. You said that. I'm like, oh no, I got to go track it, and I don't want to know how much time I spend on Twitter. So, I mean, luckily, it is my job to be on social media, so that's part of it, right?
That's right. You can do something. As long as like, okay, I'll set it an hour a day to do that because it's lead gen or whatever. But at least if you're tracking, you're not falling down rabbit holes.
Absolutely. All right. So, Geordie, you hold on one second. Let me remind people what we've got coming up next, and then I'll be right back to you.
Okay.
All right. Okay, everybody. I want to remind you. So next week we have 2 more shows. We are continuing our whole series on trying to help you take something away from this and build your business. Our idea too is not to go out and it would be great to have Seth Godin on the show, but that's not really the goal. Our goal is to bring people into you who have small businesses, who started small businesses, and who have built them. And the reason is that they still have those things in their mind that they can share with you. They still have those things. They still remember the days of sitting there, and maybe they're still experiencing the days sitting there and wanting to bang their head into the desk. We are here for you because we understand those days. We get those days. We have been there or we are currently there. That's our goal. So I want to remind you to subscribe. You can subscribe anywhere you're listening to podcasts, or you can subscribe, or actually I should say, and you can subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/Brennan Annie. It will help me out if you do that because we can monetize that page. And quite honestly, it's something that would help my small business out to be able to do that. We want to be able to get this message out more, and we can do that once we hit 1,000. That will help us out. So I want to thank you for that. Also, if you need help with social media, we can do it for you, or you can go over and learn how to do it at ASMMcampus.com. So please do feel free to go over and do that. Let me go back to Geordie. Geordie, I really appreciate you coming on today. This was great.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure, Anne.
So you stick around, and everybody else, I'll see you next week.